Hello, good day. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the introduction. In this session, we're going to take 20 minutes to discuss real-world applications of predictive maintenance and condition monitoring in mining. Really a minute about myself. I'm Michael. I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Razor Labs. Over the past 15 years, I founded four tech companies. Razor Labs is a public company today focusing specifically on the mining sector. Other are AI companies focusing on other sectors. We operate globally today in North America, South America, and really in all major continents today. In the last 10 years, we're really in Razor Labs concentrate in this area of mining. That's the sector that we've chosen. So really mine sites, concentrators, smelters, metal processing, and so on. We've visited sites from Kazakhstan to Latin America, coal operations in Colombia, really all major commodities from gold to copper to coal, looking from Australia to Europe, Africa, and really all over the place. We operate in all major commodities today. And I would like to take this session to walk you through three very diverse and different unique applications of predictive maintenance in real-world mine sites. I want to start with the first one, where we were able to predict a motor failure, unpredictable by other traditional methods. And this was a precious metal site in South Africa. As you know, the mill is one of the most important machines on site. There is no redundancy in mills. When a mill stops, you start losing throughput, you start losing recovery. When it happens for a few days, it can be millions and millions of dollars of lost throughput and recovery. And I want to walk you through what we can see here. So in this case, this is one of the screens of our system. And on site, they had a long shot. They had a shot of a few weeks. And as you know, the mill needs to be rotated slowly in order to prevent damage to the bearings. Otherwise, the vibration itself of the mill and the weight itself of the mill might cause bearing damage. In this case, they just forgot to do it in part of the period, and the sole maintenance itself, the sole shutdown itself, caused damage to the bearings of the mill. What happened is that when they were actually back up, they saw this quick deterioration over literally a couple of weeks to the motor bearings of the mill. Our system was able, which is an online system, was able to pick it up in real time and to indicate this quick deterioration of these bearings. Not only that, it was able to show what we call the evidence. So it's not a black box, but we really show evidence to the team on site, where we can see that in the course of 1 week, specific frequencies that indicate bearing deterioration went up by a factor of 40. It's a very dramatic increase. Many of you know that when we look as vibration analysts on these signals, we look at the noise floor, we look at the peaks, and such an increase is very dramatic, and it means that this needs to be maintained in the upcoming period, really in the upcoming few weeks. What the site has done is they've sent their own team to collect vibration readings. And this is what they got. What you can see here is a very noisy signal. When an expert looks at this signal, right, they try to compare the blue to the red signals, right? So it's a matter of 1 week difference, the same week, and they try to see any deteriorations. They try to see, did the peaks become higher? Did the noise floor become higher? And as you can see, because of the noise, nothing can be seen. No deterioration can be seen. So look at the difference between this noisy signal and the signal that our system was able to deliver. This is the difference in the business perspective between being able to detect the failure and not being able to see it. The maintenance manager and the GM of the site decided to believe the system, and they actually scheduled the shot. They had a shot the week after, and they actually used this shot in order to replace the motor. And when they actually took apart the old motor and they looked at the bearing, they saw this severe damage, which was very apparent, last stages of the bearing deterioration, that was otherwise would have caused their downtime right at Christmas. So this was the difference between scheduling a shot, doing it in a planned manner a week or two after, and not bringing a crane in the middle of the night at Christmas. Now, how does it work? How were we able to get from this noisy signal to this clean signal? So we do it through sensor fusion. And imagine the analogy like this. Let's say you drive your car, and you drive your car on a mountain, right? Your engine is gonna vibrate very strongly because obviously the machine is under high load. It does not mean that something is wrong with the engine. It just means that the load on the engine is high. So if I look at a mill that has very high variations of load, sometimes we have more or less or larger or smaller ore, all the operational variations will make so much noise that it will make many of the failures just invisible. What our system is doing, it's using sensor fusion to look at the operational parameters, such as the current, such as the speed, and it will always look at the same conditions on the machine. So in the analogy of the car, I will always look at the car under the same speed, same angle, same load, and same everything. And then it's much easier to see the trend. It's much easier to see the deterioration. And this is the difference between a noisy signal where you miss failures and a clean signal where you can plan it ahead, you see the deterioration, it's very apparent, and you don't, as you said, bring cranes in the middle of the night. I now want to use a very different example where we actually use deep learning visual AI to monitor crushers. In this site, they had every 3 to 4 weeks stoppages in their mill, and they didn't know why. A part of our installation is actually installing cameras that look at the material on site. The material is very hard to monitor with any other sensor. You don't see anything in the temperatures, you don't see anything in the pressures, there is no other really good way to measure it. And we always put cameras at the discharge of the crushers and the feed to the mill so we can really see what's going on. And you can see here from left to right that the deep learning models are turning the pixels into real insights. We're using the models to segment exactly what is the ore, to see really every rock independently and to measure it. So we get the entire PSD, the entire particle size distribution. We know what size the ore should be, so when it becomes oversized, we're able to monitor it in purely real-time online manner. Both on monitoring of the material itself, alignment of the belt, while we monitor the distances between the belt tip and the tips of the rollers, variations of volume, which are very dramatic before grinding. It's causing lots of inefficiencies and lost recovery, blockages and rips of the belt in different angles, as you can see here, one of the examples. So we're putting it right at the discharge of the crusher, and the feed to the mill, that was, as we remember, every 3 to 4 weeks stopping. And what we found out is that actually the mill was not to blame. It was stopping because of an upstream problem. The crusher had liner wear. It was actually discharging much larger ore size than it should. And as you can see, when we actually measure the ore, when the neural network segments the ore and it measures the ore, it's able to convert it into a trend that allows them to proactively now, before it deteriorates, before it causes stoppages, to proactively replace the liners, calibrate the crusher gap, whatever needs to be done. So now instead of doing it blindly, they're now only doing it proactively. They save on maintenance that does not need to be done, and they do the maintenance right on time. These pixels, through AI and through deep learning, are converted into a trend that is later fused with the rest of the sensors that we have on these conveyors. And they are basically sent as either alerts on SMS messages, emails, and so on, whatever the site configures. So imagine that the visual AI is 1,000 sets of eyes that you can place on any piece of equipment with material. It can be material on your conveyors, but it can also be the slurry on flotation cells in gold or copper or other sites. In this case, it can be used for process optimization to really measure size of the bubbles, density of the bubbles, and really make sure that the recovery of gold and copper is really optimal. That can be the difference between recovering 3 grams of gold from every ton of ore or 3.5 grams or 4. So it can really make a dramatic difference. It can be put on the output pellets of a site and any visual parameters that can be seen on the site, whether on the machines or the material itself. I now want to take the same concepts to a mobile fleet. And I want to show how the same concepts of sensor fusion, operation mode analysis can now be taken to haul trucks, excavators, dozers, and so on, because obviously they are a major factor in many sites. What you can see here is the same data in the same system, but in a Caterpillar 793D truck, very popular truck that is used in many sites. And you can see the data as the raw data as most sites see it. You can see that the data is all over the place. It's very noisy. You can see here some of the alarms of the OEM that are really happening all the time. When an alarm happens, it doesn't really mean that something is wrong with the truck. Many times it means that something in the operation changes. Either it's a very sharp angle of turn, either it's overspeeding, many other operational reasons and not true wear of the truck, and it's causing lots of false alarms. And now see the difference once we're able to isolate, exactly as we did previously, the same operation mode. So this is the difference. This is the before, and this is the after. You can see that the noise is dramatically reduced. You can see that when I take the truck and I look at the same gear, same load, same speed, same everything, the entire data becomes much less noisy. And in terms of the insights, it's really dramatic in terms of the value. This is the difference between seeing the failure a few minutes before it happens to seeing the failure 2.5 weeks before it actually happens. It's also the difference between having all these nuisance alarms and preventing them. What you can see here on the left side are the different components that are being monitored. So the engine lubrication system, air intake, fuel systems, and so on. And you can see that after the filtering that is done, this is a real example of a failure that was picked up in one of these trucks. So this is a failure in the oil pump of the engine. When it happens, the entire truck is down. And you can see that when we actually look at the data after the filtering, so you can see it's the same RPM and same load. You can see here that it's really a narrow sleeve that was taken. The decrease of the pressure becomes much more apparent, and it takes weeks for it to deteriorate. So it's really the difference between seeing it at the last moment when you have a truck stopping in the middle of nowhere, or you have just a few minutes or hours of preliminary warning, to having really days or even weeks of preliminary warning. Another thing that's worth saying here is that the sensors of the truck themselves are not enough. And you can see here that while I'm looking at pressures, RPMs, and others, we are also looking at the fluid analysis altogether. This data is normally not sent to the OEM. It's not sent to Caterpillar or Komatsu or Hitachi and so on. And by bringing it all together, like the amount of fuel in the oil, the viscosity itself of the oil, it really allows us to fuse it all together and to get to a precise diagnosis, where in this case, these are damaged gears within the oil pump. This is done for every component of the truck in this exact methodology, and for every component and part of the truck. The sensor fusion allows us essentially two benefits. It allows us to, as I said, pick up failures earlier and reduce false alarms. In what are we exactly fusing together? So in the case of haul trucks, as an example, we're obviously be looking at all of the sensors of the truck, the temperatures, the pressures, the parameters of the engine, transmission, torque converter, final drive, and so on. But this is not enough. We will be also looking at all the fluid analysis. We will be looking at the fuel, at the oil, at the coolants. And these are laboratory tests that are many times not correlated or correlated manually with the data. It's impossible to expect an operator or a reliability engineer on site to look at thousands of different data sources combined for each of the trucks in the fleet. What the system does is it automatically looks at them, diagnoses them, and it's able to focus the team, the reliability or maintenance teams, on these small portion of trucks that have now some deteriorating component. In addition, we're looking at maintenance and dispatch data, which allows us to both correlate these deteriorations and faults to the driver and to also see how the maintenance that is performed actually affects the health of the truck. It is both in making the maintenance more effective. If I know I'm going to maintain a truck, but I see that it is completely healthy, I can just skip this maintenance, and I know that I can do it safely without compromising on obviously on safety and effectiveness. On the other hand, if I am doing a maintenance, I can see how it affected the health of the truck, and I can see whether it brought me from red to green or maybe from red to orange. So it allows me to see how effective the maintenance was in real time on that exact day. And finally, tire information, very critical, tire tread depth, suspension data, and so on, allow us to correlate the tires together with the telemetry of the truck. Tires are a huge portion of the cost of ownership of the truck, and by being able to prolong the life of the tires, both by looking at which segments of the road actually lead to tire wear and what driver behavior lead to tire wear, it leads to longer tire lifespan. So again, all of these data sources are combined together. Number one, to detect failures earlier on, prevent false alarms, and to really make sure that we're capturing all the failures that can happen to equipment, both mobile and fixed assets. For more information, you're really welcome to visit us at booth D30. Any question, guys? I know that we have 1 minute left. Any question from the audience? Okay. Right on schedule. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.